All right, I think I'm on screen right now. That it's so bright outside that I can't see it. I'm gonna do two different things in this video. I'm gonna talk about what I eat in a day. I'm gonna take you to a farmer's market, and I'm going to, if I can see the screen, I'm going to answer some questions that people have been asking me, comments in the comments section. Let's see how this goes. Let's get started. So the one thing that I wanted to show everybody is I've been going to a lot of farmers markets lately. That's where I've been getting a lot of my food. And I do have to say that if you had like a family of 4 or 3, 4, 5 or whatever, eating the way I do would cost you a lot of money. I would probably stick more to starches. Seeing how I don't have that situation going on, I do eat a lot of fruit. Bananas are cheap, but the seasonal stuff is way more expensive this year than it usually is. So peaches are way more expensive. Watermelon's way more expensive. Watermelon on average are costing me between $8.50 and $10 a piece. I did start making them a little different than I used to. I'll cut it in half and then I'll just cut it in like long strips and then eat it that way. And I haven't been juicing the rest because I eat basically to the white part, and I just throw it out in the backyard and something usually eats it. So that's how I start off my day. Sometimes I'll have an entire watermelon. Most of the time I just have half a watermelon. Then I'll move on to seasonal fruit, which is peaches right now. And I'll have some peaches and I'll mix those with bananas because bananas are cheap. There is like the biggest bee I've ever seen in my life. And then I'll mix that together. I'll either blend it or I'll just eat it whole. Most of the time I blend it. Sometimes I'll make like 2 different smoothies in a day. And then that brings me to the starch. So I'm kind of doing like a raw till 4 type situation. Sometimes I do all fruit. Sometimes I do all starch. It really depends on the day. And it really, would depend on who's watching this, what your family dynamic is. If you have a lot of people that you're trying to feed, probably starch is definitely going to be the way to go. The starches that I've found the most digestible is potatoes, squash, and rice. Rice I soak for an hour before I cook it, and then I cook it into my rice cooker, which everybody knows if you've watched my channel. Bees are coming to get me. If you watch my channel, I always use a rice cooker, but I'll soak it in the rice cooker for an hour before I cook it, and then I just cook it on whatever mode that I am cooking it on that day. And then I'll make some vegetables with it. I have found that vegetables are pretty undigestible for me, so I don't have a ton of vegetables anymore. It's really just been starch and fruit with a little bit of vegetable. I kind of cut out all greens because I noticed they just kind of come out the same way they went in. If I don't have fat with them, and I'm doing a lot of low fat, actually all low fat. I haven't had any overt fats in a long time. I did accidentally have oil the other day because one of the places that I get my pizza sauce from started adding oil, which they never had before, so I accidentally had oil. But other than that, I haven't had any overt fats at all, and that has been working really good. I don't actually know what weight I am right now. I haven't really weighed myself, and that's really it. It's really been as simple as I possibly can make it, largely because I've noticed, I actually watched Vegetable Police the other day, and he had a video where he was talking about digestible food and undigestible food. And a lot of it was really accurate. So one of the things that I don't digest well is jackfruit. I just stay away from jackfruit altogether. And it was on the Ayurveda hard to digest list, which I can definitely see. Every time I eat them, even though they're ripe, they just don't digest well. And another fruit, there was only 2 fruit that was actually on it. It was pears and jackfruit. And I don't digest either one very well. I've never really liked pears all that much, so I don't really buy them. All fruit are like easily digested. There was a lot of starch that wasn't easily digested. Maybe I'll link that video down below so you can go check it out because I don't want to make an entire video about it. And that's it, really. That is what I've been eating. I've been making it as simple as humanly possible. And I really find that is best. Now, I have been making some chilies, which do have tomato, which is on the hard to digest list. I don't digest tomatoes all that well, but the rest of them, beans I don't really have a hard time with if it's a pretty minimal amount of ingredients. But if I have a lot of ingredients with it, I don't digest it well. So corn, rice, potatoes, and squash. I digest incredibly well, and those are the ones that I go for. I'm excited that we're coming into squash season. Like, you can get kombucha squash almost all year round, actually all year round, but it's really good in the fall time because this is when it comes into harvest. So that is it. As far as anything else, I think I'm just going to answer some questions provided I can actually see my screen. I might actually change locations because it is very, very, very hot up here. I think I'm going to do that. All right, so somebody said, haha, I hate these jumped up know-it-all kids. This was to the carnivore guy, the carnivore camaraderie or whatever. All right, so my problem is that if I eat starch without any fat or oil, my blood sugar goes all over the place. Plus, I'm hungry again 2 hours later. If I add some fat like ghee or olive oil to my white rice or oats, I do just fine. I hear some people say this. I don't know what you're talking about as far as the blood sugar. It's supposed to go up. It's what it does. It's what it's meant to do. Like, this is why you have insulin. It's going to go up. You know, it just, of course it's going to go up. All right, hopefully I'm in shot. This is, what would you think if you didn't know what your blood sugar was supposed to be or thought supposed to have been? Right, we've been taught a lot of this stuff, and they've been changing all of the criteria, like cholesterol is different than it was 50 years ago. It's all matching what they need to sell a drug for. It's not anything to do with health. It's how can they sell a drug? How can they make it look like you need something? How can they make you buy something from them? Don't get fooled by this stuff. As far as McDougall was, I can't read that one. This was in regard to the interview I just did with Dr. Peter Rogers, MD, carrying the torch for McDougall, the man that brought so many of us to the lifestyle years ago. Godspeed, McDougall, and thank you for everything. I agree. You know, McDougall and Rogers do have some very similar traits as far as they're not afraid to say what they think is good for people. I'm another former keto carnivore cult member and currently doing amazing on the high carb, low fat diet. Sugar is the way to go. That is what I found. Everybody wants to tell you that we're different. You know, everybody's different. I don't understand that. I mean, there's not an animal on this planet that eats different than the other animal. You know, like a squirrel's gonna eat what a squirrel eats. A lion's gonna eat what a lion eats. Now, I know we're not animals, but I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Or transplants or anything in the hospital wouldn't be able to happen if literally everybody was different. Now, I know there's different blood types and a couple of other, you know, different circumstances, but I mean, come on. And if you really look at the map, I mean, not everybody ate the same starch, but everybody ate starch. It's very predictable. Nothing else is predictable. Fruit isn't predictable. Animals aren't predictable. You don't know what you're going to have. A lot of you know, starch can be held for like up to 10 years. We don't really know if these doctors follow their own diets long term or most of the time, unless and until we do, it makes little sense to blame the diets they promote. I don't even know what they're getting at there. Peter Rogers, MD, is not only a great guy, he's a great ally to have. Glad you had him on. I've had him on like 5 times now, and yeah, he definitely has some good information. I like the part where Ryan says he stays away from greens. Ryan and I would get along well. You never know on that one, but yeah, I'm just not a big fan of greens, as you saw when I was up on the tower. I was talking about that. How do animals get out of torpor in nature in spring? Just by starting and eat plenty. Yeah, what was this? Georgi Dinkov talked about this when I interviewed him, that when animals come out of hibernation, they actually are diabetic, and then they just start eating, and the diabeticness goes away. I heard from Paul Saladino that foods like rice, grated cheese, and other are heavily mixed with pesticides, fungicides, in order that the foods do not rot on shelves. I can believe that with the dairy. Why would you do that with rice? You know, I don't know about that one. I think when a person eats fat and protein with carbs, this slows down glucose absorption. No, it causes the Randle cycle, and this is way too long for me to read. But no, like in nature, it's protein and fat are always together. Like if you look at, like if you're talking about like meat, it's always fat and protein. In nature, carbs are always by themselves, almost always. There's like extenuating circumstances with that, with like a durian which is I think 33% fat. But most of the time, like a potato has very little fat in it, whereas meat has meat or protein and fat. You know, it's just there's an order to things in nature. It tells us what we're supposed to do, and we get confused by that. Wait a minute, at 10:25 you said Dr. McDougall was offered a lot of money to just provide his evidence. He declined. Sounds like he was afraid the evidence he had would have been debunked. No, he just didn't want to be involved. Not everything is, you know, more than what he just didn't want to be involved. The person who will answer the question how to stop the catabolism in old age will find the answer to longevity. I still maintain that I don't think that there is a way of changing the day you leave here. I know, like in my head, I know that it's just, it's known before you get here, and you leave on the day you're supposed to. Can't really take a guy promoting carbs but scared of sugar and counting calories seriously. Even in basic biology class, they teach us that amylase in your saliva starts breaking down the starch into sugar as you chew it. Then there is more amylase released after the stomach to prepare anything in the and ready to be absorbed. This was in regard to the interview I just did with Peter Rogers, Dr. Peter Rogers. I don't remember him saying that at all. I've asked him about the calorie in, calorie out thing before, and he said that it's really nonsense, as long as you're eating high carb, low fat. Low protein, low fat, and I eat forever. Bad advice, everyone is different. Here's the thing, no you're not. No, you're not. You couldn't have a transplant if you were different. You're not an alien. Like, we all follow the same, like I'm looking at seagulls out here. They all eat the same thing, unless they're fed like out of garbage or something. Like, they eat all the same thing. Sorry, no. I finally settled on blah, blah, blah. Another fantastic video. I think that was to the interview. Thank you. Dr. Peter Rogers sounds better than any keto or carnivore guy. Those guys sound like they are about to fall asleep, especially that Dr. Berg. That guy, man. Low protein is good for weight loss and insulin control short term. No, I think Peter Rogers actually replied to this one. And long term. Yeah, I don't know. People just, like, if it's going to work, it's going to work. Now, I guess there is extenuating circumstances where keto and carnivore do work in the beginning. And I know that because I did them. But at some point, they don't work anymore, and they start being detrimental to your health. But if you look at long-term humans, they eat, not like right now, they're promoting that in Hong Kong, the longest living people eat meat, right? They didn't eat meat. Like, they're saying that they live to like 86 or 90 or 100 or whatever. These people started off when the country was extremely poor and they were eating only rice, like 90% rice. And now they have money and they're eating meat, like they're eating like the Western, they're also getting the Western diet, or the Western diet, you know, afflictions, like all these diseases. If you look at the China study, these people couldn't afford meat, they weren't eating meat, they couldn't barely find any diseases whatsoever. So they're using all of these these circumstances that didn't exist in the 1980s and trying to promote this meat thing. A diet of only sweet potatoes for a very long period of time, for months or years, is protein deficient. No. If it's got enough protein today, it's got enough protein tomorrow. Thanks, Ryan. May I ask, what do you add to your rice and greens, or do you just eat rice on its own? And how much do you have in a day to lose weight? It really varies. Like today, I really wasn't that hungry, so I'm not gonna force feed myself. Other days I wake up and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm gonna eat it enough to, so maybe I should force, and there's gonna be a lot of people in the comments with that one. What do I add to my rice? I do sometimes make it sushi rice, which is vinegar, salt, sugar, dissolved in a pan, and then you pour it over and you mix it, you fold it into the rice. That's what I do a lot of times. And then I'll just have some kind of sauce with it. I've been eating as simple as possible, honestly. I lost about 1 kilogram per month for about 10 kilograms. After that, no more weight loss. at around 10% body fat. I am now trying to, on a low carb, to cut it down. Why? What do you need to be at 7%? This person wants to get to 7%. Why are you cutting out carbs? You know that carbs are what your body needs. And you can't even digest protein without carbohydrates. They proved this in the Minnesota Starvation Project, or experiment. You can't digest protein without carbohydrates. So your body converts some of the protein into carbohydrates because you can't have protein without carbs. They say everything burns in the face of carbohydrates. It's just a dumb idea. This is going to set you up for a yo-yo. Thank you for being honest. Your truth is my truth, and so many people still have a problem to solve it, and I'm 66. Hopefully I'll figure it out. This is a video I did where I was talking about stop worrying about your body image so much and just live life. Yeah. That looks so delicious, especially the corn. That was to the, damn it. That was to the video that I did about making portobello mushrooms into hamburgers. Portobello mushrooms into hamburgers, and then I had corn and potatoes. That was really good. Thank you for this video. I was carnivore, keto, low carb for a decade, and I kept getting fatter and sicker, and I was strict keto for 6 months, and I could not get below 220 pounds even though I'm 5'4". I agree that all these animal products make a person fat because of the hormone saturated fat and protein. Yes. At some point when you are on keto and carnivore, it is going to backfire. And for me, that was when my kidneys and my liver started malfunctioning and I couldn't really do anything anymore. It was kind of scary, to be honest. You mentioned your Irish ancestors in starvation. The Irish were thriving until the potato blight of the 1840s. They were poor and all of the valuable foodstuffs they produced went to the British, but the potato kept them fed along with some milk. The population of Ireland before the potato famine was 8.5 million people, which is the highest known population that the country has ever seen. And you know, the population doubled in something like 40 years after the potato was introduced. And they were living strictly off potatoes. And I've done videos about this where men were eating up to 18 pounds of potatoes a day. That's crazy. On average, they said it was like 10 to 13 pounds for males and 5 to 8 pounds for females. And then some females ate up to 10 pounds of potatoes a day, and their population was thriving, even though the English was completely obliterating them and taking all their food. I'm proud of you for your hard work and success. Thank you. There are 2 supplements that really work, iodine and boron. Boron is deficient in a lot of foods these days. If it really is. Great message, Ryan. You think the meat dairy industry is behind the recent carnivore movement? 100%. They're funding this whole thing, that with pharmaceuticals and everybody else. I love your videos. You're a highly advanced soul, whether you realize it or not. I've been told this many times. Between all the hustlers selling protein powder and other supplements, most of this is a big money maker for the sellers. It's just pissing money away to try consumers, try to consume the next up and coming garbage miracle pill. I think I read that right. And I think that's going to be my last one. And yes, I mean, they really are spending all this money to keep us sick and in the hospitals. We saw this with Cassius Funk, who found vitamin D, or figured out what vitamin D was. And he was giving people a million international units a day, which is considered fatal. And the hospital, this was in the 1920s, and the hospitals had nobody in them. They were barren because everybody was getting cured, because the sun is what we're supposed to have. And everybody's putting the sunscreen on, trying to block the sun out, and that's blocking the vitamin D. If you really look at all the functions the vitamin D is involved with, it's a lot. It's a lot of them. Almost every function in the body has something to do with vitamin D. And so they did that with vitamin D. Now they're doing it with protein because they know protein is toxic to the body. They know that your body has an unlimited capability of storing fat, yet people want to eat fat. Doesn't make sense. So really think about what they're doing. Look at the previous, versions of the health system. Look at why the AMA got started, and really come to your own conclusions with this stuff. And yes, keto carnivore works really good in the beginning. It worked great for me. And then my body started not functioning anymore, and I started going to the doctor because I couldn't sleep anymore. I smelled terrible. My hair was falling out. and I had acne, and I smelled, you know, just terrible. My breath was terrible, and I couldn't figure it out. And then the doctor was yelling at me about, like, you can't eat this way. It's not healthy. And ironically, the same doctor who was telling me that went on keto and died because of complications that he told me I was going to get on keto. He died when he was 66. So that's it. Any comments, questions down below? I haven't been really typing any responses lately just because, I don't know, I just kind of stopped doing that. Maybe I'll do it in this format from now on, I don't know. But that is all I'm going to do with this video. Hopefully you liked it. Maybe share the video, might help some people out. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.